do that. All right. So in regards to specifically the Strait of Vermouth, right? How do you say it?
Vermouth.
Thank you. I said vermouth like a drink because I need one. In regards to the Strait, you actually made the point that I'm trying to make. You said we are the reason that it is shut off, right? That is what I'm saying, that Trump is reminding people of our power, of our ability to control the...
Hello, welcome back to the channel. Please like and subscribe to help us grow. This is a new channel. Today we are diving into a debate on the bridge, where one conservative guest, Marion, attempts to defend the prompt. President Trump is giving the world a needed reminder that America is the leading global superpower. What follows is a surgical dismantling of the strongman myth by a panel that refuses to let slogans pass for strategy. Let's break down the sharpest points of this political collision. Tell me your thoughts in the comments section.
The rest of the world. President Trump is giving the world a needed reminder that America is the leading global superpower. So it's exactly as I wrote it. You know, I just think that the world has been laughing at the United States for quite a while now, and it's really nice to have a real man back in office who's not afraid to ruffle a few feathers to remind people that we are the most powerful nation in the world, and the world needs to be reminded of that. Go ahead, Kyla.
When did anyone forget?
When did they forget? Probably when they were laughing at our president bumbling up and down the stairs and falling asleep during debates, like 3 to 5 years
Not like
ago.
the president now, who's bumbling upstairs and struggling to remember things. Calling Gavin Newsom the president of America.
Sure. Trump is not a perfect person, but we have to acknowledge, can we all just acknowledge how badly Biden did during the final debate, that was just the final moment that people realized he was no longer mentally capable of leading the country, and that's why Kamala had to step in?
Does that make anyone forget that America has the most powerful, most funded military on the planet? Because I feel like it doesn't make anyone forget that.
I think it does. I think if you are watching the leader of the country be basically incapacitated on the global stage, it gives you more than enough reason to question whether or not we will actually retaliate in the, instance of an attack or something.
Why didn't China invade Taiwan while Biden was in power? If we're so weak and they were not sure of our power, they're clearly interested in taking a large portion of the ocean there. They're clearly interested in taking Taiwan in the way that they've taken Hong Kong. So why didn't they do that?
Why did they not do it?
Yeah.
Why didn't they do it?
Yeah, I would argue.
Are you suggesting that I should understand the movement of the reasons behind every single movement of other countries?
I'm trying to get
That's not the claim
square the consistency, right? If it's the case that China dominantly is holding back from Taiwan because of deterrence of American military power, which is a known reality.
Sure.
This is something talked about. And they didn't invade Taiwan despite the growing need for solar power, microchips, and the dominance of microchips, particularly during AI, which started under Biden. I would say the strongest incentive to invade Taiwan would probably be, well, if Joe Biden was so underassuming, if America was so laughed at. If I were China, that would probably be the time that I would do it, right?
Okay, sure. Maybe they could have during that season, but that does not, you're creating a false identity of understanding everything that was going on in China at the time. You're suggesting that because they had a opportunity to do it during Biden that they would have if
I'm
they
saying
felt
that
more
they
inclined
definitely
to do
didn't,
so.
because the American military, nobody has ever forgotten that America is the number one global superpower. It has the largest economy. It has the largest military that is most funded. Nobody's forgotten about this. This is why Mark Carney talked about.
I think if you look and just watch.
But what do you think that Trump has actually done in his second term that has actually reminded people, the world, that we are the global superpower? What has he actually done?
Major dictators in 2 different countries in the last. China, and the reason that Trump had to tariff them, right? We have been systematically,
which the Supreme Court actually rolled back a lot of the tariffs that he instigated because they were considered,
that's not Trump. My claim is about Trump.
Marion opens with a vacuous narrative that the world was laughing at us and needed a real man to ruffle feathers. This is the core of the conservative foreign policy aesthetic, equating diplomatic volatility with national strength. The liberal panel's immediate pushback is fierce because it identifies the inherent weakness in this logic. To suggest that the US is only a superpower when the president is unpredictable is an insult to the institutional, economic, and military foundations of American power. The panel correctly frames frames Marion's argument as a desire for a performance, not a policy. They dismantle the laughing at us trope by pointing out that global respect is earned through stability and reliable alliances, not by being the loudest person in the room. The debate sharpens when Marion suggests China was deterred from invading Taiwan solely by Trump's persona. The panel's response is a masterclass in intellectual deconstruction. One panelist cuts through the noise, labeling this as a false identity of understanding. This is where the liberal side effectively dismantles the post-truth narrative. They point out that nobody forgot America was a superpower. Our military and economy remained the largest on Earth. By challenging the idea that Beijing bases its multi-decade strategic goals on the individual temperament of a US president, the panel exposes the conservative argument as a form of geopolitical fan fiction. It's a sharp reminder that history is moved by deep structural forces, not by the vibe of the White House.
Right.
My claim is about what Trump
So
is
once
doing.
again, to clarify your claim, you said that America is being laughed at, right?
Yes.
And you specifically...
Or was, not anymore.
Specifically
Trump.
because of Biden and his inability to speak, right? And therefore, we need to, again, bomb children in Iran. I don't know, like...
So did we
I don't
actually
get it.
bomb children in Iran? Because from what I understand...
have been bombed in.
No, I understand. So the school...
Yes, we absolutely did. 175.
So again, the school was actually close to a nuclear base that we did bomb, but
it
Israel
was
and the
bombed
United
twice.
States
We
did
doubled
not.
back.
Israel and the United States did not take ownership of that particular bombing. They took
We actually
ownership
have.
of the
We
2000
literally have.
Okay.
Your administration, whom you support, has put out a statement that said, per our new intelligence, that we actually did bomb a school. And not only did they do it once, they did it twice. But this is giving Darvo to me, because the prompt, as far as I was aware of, was Donald Trump is reminding the world that we are the global superpower.
Yeah.
Why are we talking about Biden? I want to know specifically what this man has done to the global economy. I want to know in terms of NATO and foreign relations.
Yep.
I want to know in terms of how he's affected fuel and transport. I want to know how I'm not even going to give you. I just want to know specifically,
much
so
do
we
you
can
want
stop
to
talking
know?
about what Biden did, and we could talk about the
Sure.
prompt, because we have 20 minutes, and we're not about to sit up here and deflect and talk about Biden. You're stating this claim
Absolutely.
about Trump, so respectfully, can you please let us know exactly, concisely,
Sure.
what he has done, instead of reminding him, people laughing at us? We're not going to debate that. What has he done specifically?
Again, to the prompt, stating that Trump is giving people a reminder that we are a world superpower.
How?
So I will answer that. So when I look at our foreign relations right now, the number one thing that I was happy about was us removing federal aid from other countries that have been ripping us off. Let's be honest. We are pouring money into
You
other
mean Israel?
countries. I'm
the
not
country
just
that we
talking about
constantly
Israel.
fund, like whatever that they need to do, right? We understand that like America's military has become a supplementary power to Israel. So if you want to talk about federal aid in our foreign policy, your biggest concern should be us constantly funding and backing that country.
Well, I disagree. I think Israel is actually how do I say this? It's a beneficial ally for us. When we look at where financial aid is going and we see
To
things
Israel.
like Israel, I don't have a problem with funding Israel. I'm actually not against that, because we need someone in that region to care about American interests.
What's your qualm
He's
with malaria?
destabilizing our interests. He's destabilizing our interests. We are looking at a de-dollarization, right? People don't want to have our dollar.
But that did not start under
No, it
Trump.
did not
We
start,
have to
but-
look at the other countries.
You're
that have been
correct.
Yes, it
removing.
did.
No.
Yes,
Actually,
not.
Yeah,
actually, no. Let me
Look at
tell you.
BRICS.
Let me tell you something. As a history teacher, you're correct. That did not start. BRICS was already in existence. But do you think? So here's the thing. Why would we then strategically put ourselves in a position to empower that movement, to isolate from allies, we literally are the
Which
sole...
particular allies are you
excuse me,
upset that we
ma'am.
are-
No. Thank you. And I don't want to be disrespectful, but I do want to finish my thought, because I want to give you an opportunity to respond. We are the sole reason that the Strait of Hormuz is closed. That's 20% of the world's oil supply, right? Now, Iran is not the American military, clearly, although they were not prepared. America and Israel were not prepared. That dome, done. They were not prepared, right, for the attack. They're also not prepared for troops on the ground, and they're raiding and ready, per what their prime minister said. But what I want to know is, historically, what they do have is the ability to cut off. Why do I need to bomb you when I can just cut off your supply? And not only have they cut off our supply, but they've cut off 20% of the global supply for the rest of the world. You think our allies are impressed by that? I don't think that's so. So...
and do that. All right. So in regards to specifically the Strait of Vermouth, right? How do you say it?
Vermouth, the Strait.
Thank you. I said vermouth like a drink because I need one. In regards to the Strait, you actually made the point that I'm trying to make. You said we are the reason that it is shut off, right? That is what I'm saying, that Trump is reminding people of our power, of our ability to control the rest of the world if we feel.
As the conversation shifts to Iran and the bombing of a school near a nuclear base, the fierce nature of the panel takes center stage. Marion attempts to distance her administration from the fallout, but the panel is prepared with receipts. This is a critical moment of accountability. The liberal side refuses to let Marion hide behind vague claims of reminding the world of our power. They pin her down on the human cost of these reminders. By citing specific reports of school children being killed, the panel flips the script. If this is what strength looks like, is it a strength worth having? They successfully framed the conservative toughness as a reckless disregard for international law and human life, forcing Marion into a defensive crouch that she never quite recovers from. When Marion finally attempts to provide a specific win, removing federal aid because other countries are ripping us off, the panel delivers a devastating counter-critique. They dismantle the America as a victim narrative that characterizes the MAGA foreign policy. The panel points out the monumental misunderstanding of what foreign aid actually achieves. It isn't a gift, it is a strategic tool of soft power. By framing aid removal as strength, Marion is actually advocating for the abdication of American leadership. The panel's point is sharp and undeniable. If the US retreats from the world stage to save money, it creates a power vacuum that our adversaries are more than happy to fill. They successfully frame Marion's savings as a long-term strategic bankruptcy. You don't prove you're a superpower by quitting the table, you prove it by leading the conversation.
We need to.
But Miriam,
all it takes from us
how
is
are we controlling it if he just went and asked NATO, who he just previously denigrated and belittled and condescended our allies, and now he's going back and asking them for help. So is it a good thing or no? Because it doesn't seem
that's
like
how negotiations work, though. That's
no, that's bad strategic and lack of policy. And for the sake of our survival, Democrat, Republican, like as American citizens, I'm gonna call it out and push back because it's dangerous. It's dangerous domestically.
What
and
is
it's
dangerous?
Brinkism.
Okay, explain. Go ahead.
Brinkism is his policy, right? So most diplomats, especially after World War II, were like, hey, wars suck. They're bad for economies, kills lots of people, especially young people.
Are they bad for economies?
Yes,
Your
they're
president said that when he was
absolute.
running.
Well, hold on. Yes, they are unequivocally destructive for economies. The Dow, it's no longer over 50K, Pam Bondi, right? It's not. It's I think it was at 45 last
But
time
it
I checked.
also reached the highest levels that we've ever seen it.
It's also starting to
shouldn't we
crash.
give that acknowledgement where it's due.
No.
We can't
No.
take one and ignore the other.
We can't because we have studied this historically, economically. Wars are bad for economies. They are always bad for
I mean,
economies.
like, do you know how much the war is costing a day?
I'm not aware.
$1 billion a day.
$1 billion.
Approximately $1 billion a day. And
Okay.
we're just looking at like how much it would take to, like, for example, house people and provide food and shelter for people. When we look at how much this is racking up over the span of weeks, so many of these problems could have been resolved. But instead, we are bombing other countries, and this is not doing. In fact, what it's doing is raising gas prices for average Americans. So once again, we're not seeing
Again,
this
let's
helping
okay. If we're going to
our
talk about
country.
gas, let's be fair and honest about the fact that he also dropped the gas to the lowest we've seen it in
Where'd you get
probably
that
over a
information
decade,
from?
right?
From what source?
My life. Are you kidding me? New
Your
York
life
had-
is a singular source of a nationwide
New York
statement that is
City's-
false?
New York City's gas was down to $2.84 up until about 3 weeks ago, and many other places. Now, I know you guys are here in California. Under this California, I won't call it a tyrannical government, but under these Democrats here in California who like to misuse their people for their political gain. So I see that you're not receiving those benefits, but across America, we know that gas has been under $3 a gallon up until the last 3 weeks.
I'll just grant you this. The issue is the reason in part why is because Jerome Powell is managing the Federal Reserve, right? Which is most economic benefits of any presidency can dominantly be dumped at the Federal Reserve. Trump's kind of magical because he did all the illegal unconstitutional tariffs, which destroyed our economy. But sure, oil was low, but oil was low because there was peace. We had good trade negotiations. Jerome Powell was managing it well. And how is he reacting to Jerome Powell? What thanks has Jerome Powell gotten? Subpoenas, despite him being his own choice, right? So going back to the prompt, the world needed a reminder. I don't know what to tell you. Everyone has known that America is the hegemon. Everyone has known this.
Everyone has known America as a cash cow.
No.
as a teat to suckle from. Quite literally.
No.
We are robbed by everyone else. China, as I was saying earlier.
How are we robbed if we have the largest economy in the world by an additional 12 trillion over the second largest? How is it even slightly possible? In fact, if you look at Canada and America, Canada has consistently dealt with bad trade deals because we rely on them so heavily until finally Mark Carney said, you know, it's not good for all of us middle powers to just constantly take the worst deal and undercut one another. We should stop doing this. Canadians have suffered as a result of American hegemony. So no, America's not been feeding the world by any means. They've been military funding the world. And
The panel moves in for the kill on the concept of brinkmanship. Marion attempts to frame Trump's unpredictability as a strategic asset, but the panel is ready with a history lesson. One panelist defines brinkmanship not as strength, but as a reckless relic that ignores the lessons of World War II. The sharp observation here is the connection between volatility and the economy. The liberal side correctly identifies that a true superpower builds stability to protect the global markets. It doesn't set fire to the building to prove it owns the matches. This is perhaps the most devastating moment of the entire video. When Marion tries to credit Trump for low gas prices, she uses her personal experience in New York City as proof. The panel's response is immediate, fierce, and intellectually superior. My life is a singular source of a nationwide statement that is false. This is a brilliant deconstruction of the conservative feelings over facts approach. The panelist forces Marion to confront the reality that her personal commute is not a substitute for national economic data. By calling out this statistical illiteracy, the liberal side reinforces a vital point. You cannot run a superpower based on what you see out of your own car window. Observe the power dynamic shift. As Marion's arguments about foreign policy begin to crumble under the weight of actual data, she tries to pivot back to vague reminders of American power. The panel refuses to let her off the hook. They demand, respectfully, can you please let us know exactly, concisely, what he has done? This highlights a recurring conservative flaw, the reliance on effective leadership, how it makes you feel, versus effective leadership, what actually happened. The panel successfully frames Marion's silence as a total lack of policy depth. They aren't just winning a debate, they are exposing a vacuum where a strategy should be. The liberal side points out the ultimate irony. How can a nation claim to be a leader of the free world while it is busy dismantling the rights of its own citizens? They effectively frame the conservative vision of strength as an internal retreat. A nation that is terrified of its own people, policing their healthcare and their identities, is not a confident superpower. It is a fragile regime. The panel successfully dismantles the idea that ruffling feathers abroad matters if you are burning the nest at home.
that's probably the only thing.
America has given the world the most federal aid of any country. That is a fact.
Because they're the
Also
superpower.
destabilize the world more than any other country in the history of Earth.
Sure, but the actual point is they can do that more than anyone else because they're the
Precisely my
superpower.
point. Thank you.
That's to my
Thank
point.
you, my love. I'm making that
If you wanna agree
point.
with me that America's
people
always
need
been a superpower.
reminder. Yes, we're in agreement.
So
The question is
nobody needs a
whether or not-
reminder if everyone knew the whole time that America's a superpower. It
I
sounds
have
like
not yet
sounds like we've got a war hawk.
expounded on my claim because you guys keep just giving me your facts that you're interested in, debating,
You agree with me.
and that's fine.
America's always been a superpower.
How about this, right? I think Kyla is right. According to, the way that we track wealth in this country and in the world, America is by far the wealthiest nation, the most powerful nation. But we also track, though, that when we look at where that wealth is, it's not in the hands of Americans. It's exceedingly being put into the hands of the ultra wealthy, 1% of the population. So what we can all attest to this, right? As the years go by, the gap between the majority, 99% of Americans, and the 1% continues to increase
Babe,
because
I'm sorry,
of the fact.
does this come back to Trump.
Yes,
at some point?
we're getting back to
Okay.
it, babe. We're getting back to it, right? What we're seeing here is that, without a doubt, this country has power. That power is concentrated within 1% of the population, but it has power. And nothing that you have given us today has
I've barely been
opposite.
able to speak with this group of ladies, and I say
I
that
think
with
you've made
respect. You're all very
points.
versed in what you believe, and that's fine, but you haven't even understood my reasons for feeling what I'm saying. Yeah, so as I was saying, my prompt and what I believe is that the vast majority of other countries in the world have been using and abusing the United States for quite some time. When we look at the tariffs that Trump imposed on China, I thought that was fantastic because China has been ripping off American patents for decades. And you as liberals, you should care about that, because the way that they're able to rip off these patents is by using child labor, right? They can make these products way more cheaply in China and then sell them right back to the United States with no qualms. I love that President Trump is stopping that and is forcing them to think about, or not think about, but change the way that they're doing business with the United States. Hold on.
IP theft has stopped under Trump? Is that
Sorry?
true? IP theft has stopped under Trump?
No, of course it's not going to stop instantly, Kyla. Be realistic and honest. But the reality of China being aware that we're not going to turn around and take these problems over and over, right? The fact that we not took our chance, but we made it known that we will take Greenland if we need to.
The liberal panel achieves a complete rhetorical victory by exposing the aesthetic, proving that ruffling feathers is a substitute for actual diplomacy, fact-checking the narrative, reclaiming the reality that American power is institutional, not individual, highlighting the vacuum, showing that isolationism is the opposite of superpower status. The commentary is clear. Marion came to the table with slogans, but the panel brought a map and a history book. They didn't just disagree with her. They proved that her vision of a superpower is actually a blueprint for a nation in decline. Is true national strength found in the ability to stand alone or in the wisdom to lead a coalition? Drop your comments below.